Hello and welcome in this new country deep dive where Daniel Bland, our Latin American specialist, will present the state of the market in Brazil. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Bland, and I'm editor of Global Fleet in the Americas. And I'm currently stationed out of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Besides carrying out presentations and webinars similar to what I'm doing right now, I am responsible for market analysis, related publications, executive interviews, and stuff like that. I also manage Global Fleet's WikiFleet pages in the region, which features detailed reports on national markets, not only in the Americas, but around the world. And it's all online. Considering that there are more than 20 countries south of the US border, you can imagine that much of my job entails covering Latin America. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the largest country in the region, which is Brazil. So what am I going to talk about today? First, I'll give you some basic information on Brazil, and then we'll cover the vehicle market, talk about the main leasing and fleet management players, as well as acquisition options, and then we'll talk about the current and future trends that's taking place in Brazil. And then finally, I'll give you some tips on harmonizing your vehicle management policy across the region. So what does Brazil look like? Well, there it is. So as you can see, there are 27 states in Brazil. It is not only the largest country in Latin America, but it's the fifth largest in the world. Just to give you an idea, it's about 87% the size of the United States. And there are about 211 million residents. The national language is Portuguese and not Spanish. So good day is not buenos dias, it's bom dia. And also thank you is not gracias, it's obrigado. Regardless, most Brazilians can understand Spanish to some extent. So let's take a look at the economy. The GDP last year was about $1.4 trillion, and the inflation right now is approximately 6%. It's about double that of last year. Last year was averaging around 3%. And the benchmark interest rate, which in the country is called Selic, is recently raised. It was recently raised to about 2.75%, and that was in March. Unemployment is just over 14%. Keep in mind that the local currency devaluated during the first months of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, but it has been fairly stable for about the last 6 months. So now let's talk about cars. First of all, just like the United States, most Brazilians, they like their cars. And it's also a bit of a status symbol. Now, regarding the vehicle park, as you can see on the slide, there are 66 million light vehicles. And about 9 million of them are LCVs, or light commercial vehicles. Regarding the corporate fleet, on the right side of the slide, you can see there are nearly 10 million. And regarding sales, Brazil, just like most of the world, got hit by the pandemic. So you can see that there were 1.62 million passenger cars sold. That was down 29% year over year, and just over 335,000 LCVs, which was down 15%. So you can see, as I noted in red, the commercial market was impacted less by the pandemic than the overall market. And also, I noted in red on the right that leasing only represents 6% of the corporate market. In terms of brands, we can see here on the left that General Motors led last year with more than 17% market share. This was mainly due to the sales of the Chevrolet Onix. Volkswagen trailed closely behind. In terms of fleet, on the right-hand side, we can see that Fiat led the pack, and this was also followed by Volkswagen. The Fiat Strada was the best-selling LCV model, and as you can see in the list there, compact pickups sell better than the standard pickups in Brazil, and this is probably due to the lower price point, as well as the assurity of local road and parking space when needed. So with these smaller pickups, you can maneuver in very crowded urban areas. On the next slide over here, I'm giving you an idea of the 2021 and beyond expectations. As for this year, about 25% increase is expected in vehicle production, 50% increase in new vehicle registrations, and then also a 9% uptick in exports. In regards to investments, as we can see here, approximately in dollars is about $6 billion in investment is expected in the country until 2025. This is led by Stellantis. which is FCA and PSA, and then it's followed by General Motors. You can note at the bottom there that I put that Ford is closing down production in the country by the end of the year 2021. Now, in terms of leasing, like most of you know, we have closed end and open end. The type of companies are multinationals that lease cars in Brazil are pharmaceuticals, food and beverage, telecommunications, and maybe also utilities. So as for the type of leasing in Brazil, the closed-end agreement is more common. So this is the model that's similar to Europe. Procurement experts have more peace of mind as they don't have to deal with depreciation risk, as this risk is put on the vehicle provider or the lessor. Open-end lease does exist in Brazil, and it gives you more flexible terms at the end of the contract, but it's not as popular. This is more common up north in Mexico and in the United States. But Brazil, however, it's an open-minded country and it's flexible. So look at both options and determine which is better for your company. Now, on the next slide, I want to show you the main fleet players in Brazil. So looking at the slide, you can see I've organized them in those which have 10,000 long-term leasing contracts or more. And the first three are local companies, Unidas, Localiza, and Movida. Following are ALD and Arval, based out of France, multinationals. And then we have two more local companies, LM Frotas and Oro Verde, followed by LeasePlan from the Netherlands. Keep in mind that Unidas and Localiza, they have announced plans to merge. However, we are waiting for approval from the antitrust regulator in Brazil called CADE, locally known as CADE. On this next slide, I did a brief case study on a car that's going to be leased for about 1 year with 25,000 kilometers of driving limitation. And imagine a car that's about 80,000 reais. This is about $15,000. So for this vehicle, leasing would be approximately 29,000 reais, or 36% the value of the car. However, you will get, besides the lesser paying for vehicle tax, insurance, and maintenance, you will also be able to focus more on your core business. And remember that for longer term contracts, of course, you can close one more than a year, or maybe for a multi-car agreement, negotiate a discount, maybe up to 5%. On the right-hand side, imagine we are buying a car. Of course, we need to keep in mind that we will face depreciation in the first year of approximately 15%. However, if you're paying outright, again, try to negotiate a discount on a direct purchase, maybe up to 20%. Finally, on the bottom right, of course, if you're trying to finance the vehicle, what matters is the benchmark interest rate, of which I told you already. In Brazil, it is about 2.75%. The country did hit a low rate of 2% in January, but it was increased in March to 2.75 and will probably be higher by the end of the year. So now on this next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about the trends in Brazil. There are many trends going on in Brazil and around the world, of course, but I'm going to focus on three: bike sharing, last mile mobility, and electrification. So regarding the first two, bike sharing and last mile delivery, the bike sharing, we have two types that are taking place in Brazil and throughout the world. So we got the station-based systems, and then the dockless systems, so the ones without a station. And the latter also includes electric scooters. So the stationless systems, they kind of lost popularity in the late 2019. And this is probably due to complications in having these assets stranded in maybe in bad neighborhoods. And nowadays, mostly what we see are station-based systems, mainly the Tembesi system. You can see the small picture of the orange bikes. So those are not only available in Brazil, but in many cities throughout South America. They have a station. As you can see on the top right-hand side is last mile delivery. Last mile delivery meaning these guys on motorcycles and on bicycles delivering usually food. So this really kicked off at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was popular before that, but it even kicked off even more thereafter. And another thing I also want to mention about the bike sharing is leasing companies are also providing these services. So if you have a car leasing, make sure you talk to your company and see what type of other mobility options they have. And the latest trend in regards to this for leasing companies, car leasing companies, they have electric bikes. So the electric bikes are starting to become more popular. And but finally, at the bottom over here, I just put in a picture of these little automated, they are self-driving delivery bots that were launched they were launched in Colombia by Rappi. So these are some of the new things that take. It's not that popular in Latin America, but it's something to keep an eye on in the future. This as well as drones. So drones is another thing that we can keep an eye on. So finally, this is the electrification. So electric cars. This is, what a lot of people are talking about, not only in Brazil, but around the world. Some people are quite enthusiastic and others are a bit hesitant. But on this slide, I just give you an idea of, there are about 44,000 EVs in Brazil, probably a little bit more now. And they represent about 1.5% of the sales in the country. As far as the annual sales, it is seen increasing to about 62,000 by 2025. However, are these cars worth it? Well, look on the right-hand side, the benefits, like most of us know, it reduces CO2 emissions, it helps corporate sustainability goals, reduces maintenance expenses. The torque is fantastic when you drive. I guess lower urban noise, they're quiet. However, there are hurdles. Challenges, especially in Brazil. So yes, there's a lack of charging infrastructure. However, to me, I think that the cost of the vehicles need to come down. However, with larger production, in economies of scale seen in the future, I believe that more affordable offers will be showing up in the market. Also, keep in mind that battery prices are going down, so they're expected to go down maybe to about $70 per kilowatt hour by 2030. So of course that will help. And then finally at the bottom right hand, you can see that according to a lot of experts I talked to, what is really needed is government incentives. So building national recharging infrastructure, having more robust tax breaks, incentives on the purchase of the vehicles and also on the use of the vehicles. And we have a little bit of this in Brazil, such as you get half price on your vehicle tax if you have an EV, and the drivers are less restricted to drive. There's the Rodizio driver restriction in Sao Paulo to reduce traffic, and if you have an EV, you're not restricted, so you can drive in the regions. On the next slide over here, you can see that it's just a list of some of the models that are available in Brazil. So keep in mind this is just a partial list. I put some hybrids and some electrics there, and the picture that I highlighted here is the Toyota Corolla hybrid, because it was the first in the world that it runs on electricity and gasoline and also ethanol. And sales of this Toyota hybrid jumped last year about 166%. So if you have a chance, try to check some of these cars out, test drive them. I've driven a few of them. I like the torque. I like the torque in these cars, and I still like the rumble of a combustion engine. But a lot of these EV models, they have synthesized sounds so that with the sound of the engine. So on to the next slide over here. It's pretty much the end of my presentation, and we want to talk a little bit about harmonizing your fleet policy across the region. Of course, standardizing it's complex, but you can pull it off. And also you can find benefits such as leveraging through economies of scale if you standardize across multiple countries. I think what you need to know is the local laws, the tax schemes, the economic condition in each country, and the cultural differences. You can either do this on your own, or you need to find a knowledgeable partner that can help you determine what these are. So if you do, harmonization is possible. Keep in mind that the region does have similarities, religious beliefs, social justice dogmas, synergies can be found. And the main countries, which I put on the slide over here, will be more like in South America, like Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, Chile, and Peru. In Brazil, vehicle benefits are more common. That's what I have in parentheses here. 76% of the multinational companies are offering car benefits. And then you can see the percentage in the other countries. But who gets a benefit? You know, not everyone gets a benefit. Usually they are business unit heads, country managers, sales managers, and other executives. Keep in mind that right now in Argentina, the interest rate is quite high. So you will probably need to adjust your vehicle acquisition policy in that country. And as for up north in Mexico, standardization with the South might be a little more difficult. You have, it's in a different time zone. It's geographically distant from South America. And also, like I mentioned before, the fleet management models are more similar to that of the United States. And that's why sometimes Mexico is considered North America and not necessarily Latin America in the automobile industry. However, car benefits in the country are quite popular. As you can see, just like Brazil, it's about 74%. So there are some synergies and harmonization can be possible. So to wrap up, I just have one more slide. It's 5 tips and tricks for fleet experts in Brazil. Let's take a look here. So in Brazil, it's short-term thinking. The country kind of thinks more short-term than long-term, but for you, focus more long-term. Okay, it's not only the initial price of the assets, it's a TCO, like much of you know, the TCO, total cost of ownership. Focus more long-term. And also fixed planning in Brazil. It may not be as common as you see elsewhere. Just be prepared to be flexible. Flexibility may need to be necessary. Thirdly is the tax system in the country and legislation. It can get complicated. So do your homework and carry out due diligence. And also, despite there are new mobility concepts on the rise, usually for the younger generation, there's a lot of Brazilians, they do love cars. And last but not least, of course, is yes, there are challenges in Brazil, like I said, but it's a dynamic country, and you can find a lot of opportunities. So prepare yourself for success. So those are just a few of the things you need to know to properly operate your business in Brazil. And remember that Global Fleet and its Latin America arm, Fleet LATAM, will continue to offer you insight in the region. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or comments about Brazil or about the Americas. Obrigado pela sua atenção. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Daniel, for this interesting presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, don't hesitate to watch the other regional and country deep dives available for you in this section.